Are documentaries truthful? I am going to be making a factual documentary in this unit. To help me make one of the best of my ability, I'm going to be researching if documentaries are trustful and can be used as a reliable source. I will be doing this by looking back on the origins of documentaries so I can have a better understanding of the codes and conventions. I'm hoping this research will help me differentiate between subjective and objective. I also want to investigate how propaganda is used in documentaries and how this could affect how truthful documentaries are. The purpose of a documentary can be a very big topic to cover. Documentaries mostly cover fact and real life events. The purpose of any documentary is to inform their audience, whether that is through entertainment, observing of real life events, persuasion, or challenge of perspective. The directors of documentary provoke an emotion out of their audience. A well-made documentary will use lots of codes and conventions to pull emotions, as that is the only way to get a powerful and meaning story across. Documentaries are made to inform people. They are made to spread awareness and create opinions. The audience rely on the information to be truthful. What is subjective and objective? A subjective documentary echoes the filmmaker's beliefs or personal experiences related to the topic. This means there is a feeling involved, as there is passion behind the fact. This doesn't mean that an objective documentary won't have feelings involved. It just means there is less personal information and facts involved. The more opinions, the more subjective. If the media text has more facts than opinions, it's most likely an objective documentary, as it has more and codes and conventions of objective. If the documentary has an equal measure of both opinion and fact, it would be a balanced documentary. Objective documentaries tend to have stronger data to back up their topics. This will be heavily researched, so it's completely factual. History. Lumiere brothers. The Lumiere brothers are responsible for creating the technology to record moving image. With this invention, they started to make what was called actuality. Today, these are called observational documentaries. The original actualities consisted of the Lumiere brothers setting up a camera and capturing everyday life. One of the first actualities to be shown on the big screen was a piece of moving image that showed a train pulling up to a French station. This was very impactful at the time, as no one had ever seen anything like it. Before this showing, nobody knew what to expect. These short films, unedited clips that captured life. Nanook of the North. The first feature-length documentary was believed to be released in 1922. It was called Nanook of the North and was created by Robert J. Flattery. Although there are many queries and debates about whether it was the first, it is still recognised as one of the most well-known documentaries of its time. In this documentary, Robert explores the life of Nanook and his family. They lived in the Canadian Arctic. The footage shows them completing everyday tasks and how they lived in the challenging environment. It follows codes and conventions of an observational mode of documentary. They use a third perspective angle for almost all the footage. The filming for this project took 6 years to complete. While filming, some footage got lost in a fire, and some footage is believed to be reenactments of previous recorded shots. Technically, this changes the mode of the documentary from an observational to a performance documentary. Because of this incident, it was up for debate whether it made it a film or whether it could be classed as a documentary, as it wasn't 100% truthful, as some of the scenes had been staged. This is where filmmakers must be careful when differentiating between enactments and documentaries. What is propaganda? Triumph of the Will was a documentary made in 1935 by Leni Riefenstahl. The documentary was made to promote Adolf Hitler's Nazi Party campaign. In the documentary, Hitler is shown to be a man of the people. There are shots showing young people supporting him, lots of smiling faces and even streets buzzing with excitement, waving the Nazi flag around. This subjective documentary because Adolf Hitler asked for it to be made. He has a personal relationship and feeling for the subject. He chose the name of the documentary, and all the codes are of a subjective documentary, as there's much more opinion than fact. The documentary showed Germany as being powerful. There were 700,000 people who lined the streets as Adolf Hitler marched through, showing only the people that were happy to see him. This created propaganda, where information is left out or hidden to promote a political cause in a positive light. Important world leaders recognise the power of moving image and have used it to their advantage, creating documentaries about specific political parties or ideologies. People were incredibly influenced by these moving images and would believe what was being fed to them. This gave the world leaders even more power and control. Propaganda makes it hard for documentaries to be completely truthful. They miss out a lot of information, and that could change the picture completely. Development and popularity of documentary. After the war, documentaries became less popular and stopped showing in cinemas. People became more interested in fictional film. This could have been because they wanted to escape the traumatic events of the war. The emergence of TV in the 1950s also meant people were staying in the comfort of their own homes to watch media. Documentaries still gave people information and spread truth, and continued to be made even to this day. Over time, documentaries have gained popularity again. This might have something to do with Netflix, as they pushed for documentaries to be a key source of entertainment and information. Some of their most successful documentaries use techniques like persuasive language, statistics to state fact, emotive music, images, sometimes seen in the wallpaper technique. Modes of documentary. Bill Nichols, 1991. It wasn't until 1991 that Bill Nichols did a deep dive into documentaries and looked at what makes different documentaries unique and stand out. He proposed that there were 6 types of documentaries. Poetic. This mode of documentary is made to provoke emotion from its audience. It often doesn't have a narrative and follows a subjective style. Expository creates a specific point of view or argument for the audience to agree with. This would be classed as an objective documentary, and it is based on the filmmaker's opinion. They are trying to get the audience to agree with them. This mode of documentary uses codes and conventions like the voice of God and archive footage. There is also participatory mode, which involves the filmmaker following events. The purpose of this documentary is to encourage direct engagement. As the filmmaker is a character in that mode, they share personal opinions, feelings and views on the subject, making it a subjective style. The observational is where the documentary observes and records realism, made in a fly-on-the-wall style. Then have reflective mode, following a pattern of the filmmaker being part of the documentary. They will talk to the camera directly in an interview style, and the questions are incorporated in the final edit. These documentaries are usually objective, as the filmmaker never or very rarely enters the narrative. Lastly, performative. This documentary style could be seen as a hybrid with lots of other modes, as it doesn't have a specific code or convention that relates to just performative. This would be a subjective documentary, as it heavily relies on the filmmaker's opinions and experiences. Frankenbiting. Editing objectively to create an entertaining sequence is what we call Frankenbiting. However, taking something out of context can result in miscommunication or confusion, be seen as mistrust for some audiences. An example of this could be when the BBC was making a documentary about Queen Elizabeth II and used a sequence of clips that made it appear as though she was storming out of a photo shoot, when in reality she was arriving. This caused confusion for the audience and resulted in the BBC making an official apology. This is where Frankenbiting could be misused. But if used in the right way, Frankenbiting can condense clips, making them clearer, quicker and more engaging by removing irrelevant information. News platforms are the best examples for this, as they use factual programming while also applying selective editing, preventing the audience being overloaded with information. Linking back to our question, are documentaries honest and truthful? Documentary today. Documentaries look very different today compared to back when the Lumiere brothers first made theirs. In today's media, Netflix are the biggest company for documentaries, having 81 million subscribers, award-winning text, winning their first Oscar and BAFTA with a documentary. Documentaries are no longer about just getting message across to the audience, but about taking them on a journey to explore the message fully. In conclusion, documentaries all follow a similar pattern. They are there to inform an audience of a subject and challenge what they know. The filmmaker's choice will determine if the documentary is a subjective documentary or an objective documentary. There will be more feelings and opinions involved, or more facts and statistics. As I looked at the history of documentaries, it let me see that they could misrepresent people and stories. This is how, in my opinion, documentaries could be seen as not honest or not truthful, depending on the approach of the filmmaker and the amount of pre-filming research they had carried out.